Evening, gang. Hi, guys. How's everybody doing? Please don't mind me. I have some coffee. How's everybody doing this morning or this evening? This morning's devotions really is challenging me. It's bringing up some things to me that with me that I want to share with you. I'm sure you know the whole story of the feeding of the 5,000, but in this passage this morning in John, of John 6, uh, John himself does something that none of the other writers do, that Matthew, Mark, and Luke don't do. He mentions where the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes come from, that they come from this little boy. And as I was reading this morning's devotions, I was recalling something that Pastor Joe Foch had said, my pastor at Calvary Chapel, on how children back then were completely not valued. That Jesus reached out to people who were the insignificant, who were the least valued, who were the least respected. And children were one of them. Children were treated horribly back then. And Jesus took time to reach out to them. I mean, after all, he was the one that said, to be in the kingdom, you have to be like this little child, childlike faith. And as I was reading this and thinking about, what Pastor had said, I was thinking about the fact that this little boy willingly and generously gave his lunch his mother made him, because his mom was probably thinking, you don't want to go off without your lunch. If you're going to go see Jesus, make sure you bring your lunch with you. And little did she know, and little did he know, that his lunch was going to be used to feed 5,000 people, that Jesus would take something so seemingly insignificant and tiny and turn it into something great. And as I was thinking about that, I was thinking of quite a few other things. I saw these 2 questions in this morning's devotional, and I had to ask them. I wanted to challenge you on them. What have you been holding back from God? Is there something in your life that you're holding back from Him? Is there something that you're keeping from Him because maybe you're afraid you'll be seen as weak? You think God will think less of you, that God will hate you? I went through that myself. I was sharing this with Ricky this morning, my husband. I had a situation during I think it was my 4th year in college, where my contact lenses were really in bad shape. I didn't exactly know how to take care of contact lenses, although I was doing the best I could. And my contact lenses were like really beat up. They were hurting my eyes. That's how bad they were beat up. So I was having to wear my glasses, and I'll be honest, I hated wearing my glasses. I hated wearing glasses because, well, as many of you know, I was sexually abused by a Baptist pastor, a pastor from the Independent Fundamentalist Baptist Church movement. For 2 years, I had that happen to me. And during that time, the one thing that I remember of that is that I was wearing glasses. And I associate glasses with that. Now that I'm going to be 50 in a couple of months, I really don't associate it that much anymore with that. But God has shown me that glasses have nothing to do with it. But when I was wearing them, I felt weak and inferior. I felt helpless. And when I had contacts on, I felt like a different person. I know that kind of sounds weird to some of you, but I'm sure you understand what, having a makeover in some way does for you. And that's what this did for me. It made me feel like a totally different person. like I was not that weak, insignificant person anymore, but I was a newer Wendy. And it's always instilled in me not just a refusal to look or appear in any way weak, but it's also instilled this desire in me to always want to be in control in situations, to always try to have to prove myself to people so that they don't see me as incompetent or inferior. You ever hear the saying, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself? That's been my mantra. And I have to go to the Lord and say, Lord, I need to leave this to you. I constantly have to do that. I'll firmly admit that. And like I said, all of this, it's because pride, or I don't want to be viewed as this weak and helpless individual, this incompetent individual. And this is something that I continually need God's help with. And I'm sure there are a lot of you out there that can relate to this. When I read this, and I was reminded of how Jesus valued children, that he valued those that the world wouldn't value. It really encouraged my heart and it challenged me. It got me to thinking about this question: what have I been holding back from God? Have I been holding back our finances, my physical situation? Have I been holding back things in our marriage, maybe, or anything? And I wanted to challenge you on that today. What have you been holding back from God? Is there something you're holding back from Him? Are you afraid to tell God something? I mean, God already knows it, but are you afraid to go to God with it because you think He'll hate you? Because He'll view you as less, or others will view you as inferior? Hey, if there's anybody out there that will view a person as inferior or incompetent because they made a mistake, they're not worth being friends with or associating with. That's my opinion. If you're dealing with something in your life, maybe you've been sexually abused. Maybe you have been betrayed or violated in some way. And it's caused you to want to always be in control, to always want to have the last say. Maybe it's caused you to refuse to admit weakness in a particular area because you're afraid if you do, you'll be considered incompetent and helpless, and you don't want to be taken advantage of. I know that feeling. I've been there. And it's something I still deal with on a daily basis, and I have to go to the Lord constantly. And this is something that I want to challenge you on. You ask yourself, okay, yes, I've got this issue. Why is it so hard? Why is it difficult to bring that area of my life to God? I've asked myself that, and I think it's because, as I said, I don't want to be viewed as weak or inferior. I don't think any of us do. We don't want to. We don't want the world to see us not in control. We don't want the people we know that see us as these strong, solid people for the Lord, to know that we're wounded individuals. We hide that. And there's a way of showing it, letting people know without overdoing it. That's something I've learned the hard way. I learned early on, when I was finally coming out with what happened to me, to be careful who I told, because there were certain people that I told that I made the mistake of telling, that tried to use it against me. And I had to deal with them on that down the road. But one thing I've learned in the midst of all of this, especially in this passage, that God is able to use me if I am willing to give what I have to Him, to give my insecurities, to give what I'm holding back from Him. If I hand it over to Him, to surrender what I have to Him, no matter how seemingly insignificant or useless I think it'll make me, God can turn it into a strength. And I know that when I submit what I have to him, my time, my talents, whatever it might be, if others view it as insignificant, God doesn't view it as insignificant. I was reading this morning of the parable of the 10 talents, which is where I got this verse from, Matthew 25:23. I want to read this to you before I end this, because I think it's important. It says here, it starts in verse 14. For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, every man according to his several ability. And straightway took his journey. Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same, and made them other 5 talents. And likewise he that had received 2 also gained other 2. But he that had received the 1 went and digged in the earth and hid his Lord's money. And after a long time the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoneth with them. And so he that had received the 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them 5 talents more. His Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. And you see the same thing with the person with the 2 talents. He says, because thou hast been faithful over a few things, I will make thee ruler over many things as well. And then he comes to the person with the 1 talent. And this is what gets me. This person with the 1 talent says this, Lord, I knew thee that thou art an hard man, reaping where thou hast not sown, and gathering where thou hast not strawed. And I was afraid and went and hid thy talent in the earth. Lo, there thou hast, that is thine. His Lord answered and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest that I reap where I sowed not, and gather where I have not strawed. Thou oughtest therefore to put my money to the exchangers, and then at my coming I should have received mine own with usury. Therefore take the talent from him, and give it unto him that hath 10 talents. For unto every one that shall be given, he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. And cast ye the unprofitable servant into outer darkness, and there shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now there's something interesting with this. When I said, about holding back, I think this person with the 1 talent that went and buried it held it back because he had an incorrect view. It represents a person with an incorrect view of God. I remember reading in a book that some people view God as a stingy miser, that he trickles down his blessings on us. That's not how God works. He showers us with his blessings. But some of us, for some reason, we can't get that into our heads. And I know I have the same issue. That's why I hold, with the holding back, as I was mentioning, because I don't want to be viewed as weak or inferior. And I was of this mindset growing up in the IFB, where I had to do things to prove that I was a Christian. To be a good Christian, to be a real good Christian, you had to be in church whenever the doors were open. You had to be out there soul winning on Thursday nights. You had to be in church on Sundays, Sunday morning and Sunday evening and Wednesday evening. You had to wear exactly what you were told to wear, dress the way you were told to dress, say exactly, you see what I'm saying? And that's not what a true Christian is. God's not impressed by how much you're doing for him, but by the quality of what you're doing for him. That's something I still learn over and over. And here in this moment, with this parable, God is saying that he can take whatever talent you have, whatever gift or ability you have, no matter how seemingly insignificant you think it is or others think it is, he can take that and use it for him if you'll give it to him, if you'll put him in charge, even if it's, cleaning up bathrooms, for example. And it's something I pray that you'll understand that whatever you do, whatever gift or talent you have, whatever it is that God's given you to do it all unto him. Don't hold back. Ask him to help you surrender whatever you have to him, knowing that he can take that little and turn it into a lot. You know, there's a song, a hymn called Little is Much When God is in It. It was done by a woman named Kitty Suffield. And it talks about this particular issue. It's based on Matthew chapter 14, verses 17 and 18, and even Joshua 23, verse 10. I'm going to post a link for this song along with this blog. But there's a part here. It says this. The chorus is, little is much when God is in it. Labor not for wealth or fame. There's a crown and you can win it if you go in Jesus' name. And I encourage you, go in Jesus' name. Go in Jesus' name. Whatever you are called to do, whatever he's given you to do, go and do it in his name. Don't be afraid to do so. Don't hold back from God what he's given you to do for him. I've got to get going. Hubby and I have a busy day today. I got to get these done, and we got to do food shopping. So please keep us in prayer. We really appreciate it. Before I close, I also want to let you guys know, if anyone is interested, God allowed me, part of something God's called me to do, and I'm going to continue this further. I want to clue you into a site called the Preacher Boys Podcast. And on there, I had the privilege of sharing my story. I will put a link on here to the podcast site if you guys want to check it out. There's other stories on there that you've got to check out. And you'll see the truth of the independent fundamentalist Baptist movement with these actual factual stories. I've got to get going, but I wish you all a really great evening. And remember, as I said, little is much when God is in it. Bye for now, and have a nice night.